Now let me introduce to you, for the first time, your next Vice President of the United States, Kamala Harris. Kamala?
Almost immediately after Joe Biden announced Kamala Harris as his running mate, baseless accusations about her eligibility began percolating. The arguments are exemplified by this Newsweek op-ed, written by conservative lawyer John Eastman. In it, Eastman argues that because Harris's parents were immigrants, she might not be a natural-born citizen. The conspiracy theory has been echoed in various forms by prominent conservatives, including President Trump.
I heard it today that she doesn't meet the requirements. I have no idea if that's right. I would have assumed the Democrats would have checked that out before she gets chosen to run for vice president.
Reaction to the op-ed prompted Newsweek to apologize, saying, "The op-ed was never intended to spark or to take part in the racist lie of birtherism," adding, "We should have recognized the potential, even probability, that that could happen. But where are these theories coming from?" Let's rewind a bit. Article 2, Section 1 of the Constitution states that no person except a natural-born citizen can become president. The founders included this language to prevent foreign meddling in the newly established democracy, but its interpretation has been largely subjective.
I think the simplest and most correct approach is simply to say that it's anybody who becomes a citizen at birth, whether because they're born on the territory of the U.S. or because they're born abroad but to U.S. citizen parents, or simply because for whatever reason Congress declares that a person born in a particular circumstance is a citizen at birth. But there are people who argue that it can only be a person born on the territory of the U.S. and perhaps only a person born on the territory of the U.S. And also, if their parents are U.S. citizens, which is the argument being made against Kamala Harris's eligibility, I think quite wrongly.
In 2003, Republican Senator Orrin Hatch actually proposed an amendment to repeal the natural-born citizen clause, suggesting instead that anyone who had been a citizen of the U.S. for at least 20 years could run for president. It was nicknamed the Arnold Amendment, and largely seen as an attempt to make California Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, a native Austrian, eligible for the White House. But public support for the amendment was bleak. At the time, 70% of Americans opposed allowing U.S. citizens native to a foreign country to be elected president. Hearings were held, but ultimately, Hatch's amendment went nowhere.
I think the argument is simple for removing the natural-born citizen requirement, which is that we shouldn't discriminate against people based on where they were born or who their parents are. We readily accept this in almost every other area of government policy, including even for eligibility to every other high office, like Justice of the Supreme Court, Speaker of the House of Representatives, Governor of a state, and so forth.
Secretary of State Henry Kissinger, arguably one of the most powerful figures in the US during the Vietnam War, could never be president. He's a native German. Similarly, Madeleine Albright, the first female Secretary of State, could never be either. She's a native Czech. And 6 Supreme Court justices on the bench's history were foreign-born.
If naturalized citizens can hold all those positions, then we would think it wrong to discriminate based on where they were born, and the same thing should apply here.
Questions around what it means to be naturally born affect candidates of both parties. In 2008, John McCain, born in the Panama Canal Zone to American parents, dismissed claims about his eligibility. Ted Cruz, born in Canada to an American mother and Cuban father, faced similar issues in 2016.
We need to elect someone who can win.
And DeMarco Rubio, born in Florida to Cuban immigrants, did as well.
Why doesn't he show his birth certificate?
I'm starting to wonder myself whether or not he was born in this country.
So whether or not that was a real certificate, because a lot of people question it, I certainly question it.
But perhaps most notable was the years-long birtherism crusade, led by Trump about President Obama's birthplace.
Do you accept that President Obama was born in the United States, is not Muslim?
I really don't know.
There is so much eagerness among certain people to preserve this idea that citizenship means whiteness, citizenship means real Americanness, and that African Americans or Indian Americans or Cuban Americans or are not really us, and so they can't be citizens. And that's really what this is. It's not even a dog whistle; it's a racist whistle, being blown very loudly.
More than 40 million people living in the US were born in another country, and upwards of 20 million have been granted citizenship. And despite the strong anti-immigration rhetoric from the Trump administration, attitudes about immigration have continued to tick upward over the last 2 decades. Most other Western democracies don't require candidates to be naturally born to be eligible for high office. So why hasn't there been a more prudent effort to amend the requirement here?
Any constitutional amendment is difficult to enact because it requires a large supermajority, 2/3 of both houses of Congress and 3/4 of state legislatures. Therefore, I think it's unlikely that this will be abolished in the near future. However, I think it's entirely possible that eventually it will be, especially if it can be done at a time when the xenophobic tendency recedes somewhat, and also at a time when there's no one party that will clearly be advantaged by it.
I think that, you see this sort of organized effort to get the birther card into the 2020 election, and it has backfired.
He wrote an article saying there could be a problem. It's not something that I'm going to be pursuing.
As our country diversifies, and as young people become voters who have grown up knowing how diverse the population is, if we're lucky, we will get to a situation where no serious leader in either party will play this game. Because when a Donald Trump encourages it, it does tremendous damage to national unity and to the understanding of American citizenship and our ability to live together.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.